Hey everyone, it's Trey Yingst, the chief foreign correspondent for Fox News, joining you once again from the Middle East as we are tracking developments across the region, specifically looking at the protests that occurred earlier this month in Iran and the possibility of U.S. action against the regime. Whether you're joining us on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, X, or YouTube, be sure to share this video with your followers so they can get the latest information we are reporting at Fox News. And of course, tune in to our ongoing coverage on Fox News channel. I want to start by talking about what we know and the latest developments over the past 24 hours, and then I'll take some of your questions in the comments below. So starting off with the situation on the ground in Iran, it's been around 12 days since the internet blackout began, and there are currently no signs of it letting up, making it incredibly difficult to get new information out of Iran. We are still able to connect with some people who are using Starlink and others who are able to get information out using SIM cards from other countries, or they're phoning from close to the Iraqi border where they're able to pick up other cell towers. But the situation on the ground remains dire. We're getting information from doctors in Iran who say there are thousands of people still in hospitals who were injured during the widespread protests earlier this month, and that security forces aimed to blind many people. They were shooting in an effort, if they weren't trying to kill, to maim and injure people seriously. And so doctors remained overwhelmed in hospitals, not just in the capital of Tehran, but in other areas across the country. As we are tracking the possibility of more demonstrations, there have been calls for protests from the exiled Prince Reza Pahlavi and others who are calling on the Iranian people to rise up against the regime, while at the same time we're getting information from the Iranian capital of the IRGC patrolling different neighborhoods and playing war anthems in an effort to intimidate those who came into the streets before and who are looking for new leadership in Iran. Remember, over the weekend, President Trump called for new leadership in Iran, and that was in response to statements from Iran's supreme leader, the Ayatollah Khamenei, and the country's president, Masoud Pezeshkian, blaming the United States for the demonstrations. So again, if you have any questions, you can feel free to put them in the comments below, and we will answer them live here amid this stream across Fox social media platforms. Again, whether you're joining us on TikTok, Instagram, X, Facebook, or YouTube, my name is Trey Yingst. I'm the chief foreign correspondent for Fox News, and we are reporting live from the Middle East at this moment. Again, put those questions in the comments below, and I will answer them as they come in. We are tracking the latest information out of the Middle East as it relates to the situation with Iran. There has been some posturing of U.S. forces in the region, and already there are reports that indicate more American fighter jets were deployed to neighboring Jordan to prepare for the possibility of not only defense against any possible attacks targeting U.S. ally Israel, but also possible offensive action that could target the Iranian regime. The first question here, what is the latest on U.S. potentially taking action? So again, there is at least one U.S. aircraft carrier headed toward the Middle East right now from the Pacific region. Additionally, we know that those fighter jets were deployed to Jordan. There are other American assets already in the region at places like the Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar that houses around 10,000 American personnel. That's the largest U.S. base in the region. And at the same time, they have to ensure that they are preparing for the possibility of an Iranian attack. And that is why Israel remains on high alert. We also heard from Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu yesterday and the Israeli Chief of Staff overnight warning Iran against attacking Israel, as they did last year during the 12-day war, a war that included hundreds of ballistic missiles raining down on the city of Tel Aviv, where we are reporting from right now. The next question is, do we have an updated number on how many died and how many were arrested? We know that the current death toll from human rights organizations tracking this number in Iran stands around 12,000 people, and that includes the confirmed dead and those who are currently being looked at, investigated to confirm that they were indeed killed during these demonstrations. Some of the numbers from the regime are around 5,000. Human rights organizations say the number could be as high as 16,000. We simply aren't able to independently confirm these numbers because of the internet blackout in Iran. The next question is discussing the situation on the ground. If the U.S. does intervene, what will change actually look like? and will it take years? The short answer is we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen next on the ground in Iran, but we can tell you that across the region, there are top officials, not just in neighboring countries, but here in Israel, who are working around the clock to prepare for the possibility of offensive action, but also defensive action, understanding that the Iranians are targeting civilian areas when they are launching these missiles into Israel, as we saw 2 times in 2024, and then 1 time during that 12-day war, as the Iranians were launching these missiles into Israel, some of them slamming into civilian buildings. We arrived at scenes where they were pulling people out of the rubble. A young girl was killed just south of this city. And it gives you a sense of how dangerous these missiles can be, because despite the advanced air defense systems that Israel has, from the Iron Dome to David's Sling and the Arrow 2 and 3 system, some of these missiles are still able to slip past the Israeli air defense, and of course the American defense systems, who are helping to shoot down the incoming fire. The next question is, what's the sentiment inside of Israel about what's happening in Iran? There is certainly some concern over the possibility that Iran could launch another attack against Israel, but life continues as normal. People are going to cafes and restaurants. They are holding Zumba classes along the beach. They are going to the beach. And it just gives you a sense that life continues as normal in Israel, despite the fact that there is increasing regional tension and the possibility of a broader conflict. The next question is, why is the U.S. being blamed for their lack of action against Iran? The reality is that the United States has taken a number of economic actions to put pressure on the regime, not only on Iran's supreme leader, but also on the IRGC, the group responsible, the military wing responsible for much of the killing and deaths in the streets of Iran. In terms of military action, we did see last year President Trump ordering those strikes against Iran's nuclear facilities to destroy the country's nuclear program. And again, the Americans remain postured to possibly launch further strikes in the future. But we have to zoom out and look at all of this on a broader timeline. And so these things don't always happen overnight, but certainly the Americans and the Israelis are watching this story closely. The next question is, are they executing people in prisons in Iran? We simply don't know the answer to this question. The Iranian regime does have a history of executing political prisoners, often without trial. But in terms of the executions that may or may not be taking place right now, it's very difficult to confirm the information and reports that circulate, just given the fact that we are not able to directly speak with sources every day in Iran. And also, we aren't able to get official numbers of people that are even in prisons in Iran. But we do know the number is in the thousands, and some of those people could face execution if there is not a broader understanding reached. And again, President Trump has spoken extensively about the possibility of prisoners being executed in Iran, saying that this could lead to direct action by the United States. The next question, can the U.S. and Israel take out the supreme leader and end the regime? The reality is we're not able to predict what's going to happen. There are, according to the White House, all options on the table for the president to choose from in terms of a response against the Iranian regime and the actions that they have taken against demonstrators. Again, if you're just tuning in right now, my name is Trey Yingst. I'm the chief foreign correspondent for Fox News. We are reporting from the Middle East. Whether you're joining on TikTok, Instagram, X, YouTube, be sure to share this video with your audience so that they can get updated on what's happening on the ground here in the Middle East. And of course, tune into Fox News Channel as we continue to cover this story around the clock. Someone says, are people in Israel feeling a sign of hope for the first time of a free Iran? It's a great question, because when you zoom out here and you look at how all of this unfolded, a domino effect across the Middle East, this began on October 7th of 2023 when Hamas launched a cross-border attack into Israel, slaughtering around 1,200 people and kidnapping more than 240 people. And that led to a war inside Gaza that just ended a few months ago with the Trump administration's peace deal, a ceasefire agreement. But this set off a domino effect in the region that led to a direct conflict between Israel and the Iran-backed group Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, a direct conflict between Israel and the Iran-backed Houthis in Yemen. And the Israelis have taken out much of Hezbollah's leadership in southern Lebanon, the strongest proxy of the Iranian regime. They have gone after the Houthis, who continue to launch missiles and drones at Israel. And they have destroyed much of the Hamas and Islamic Jihad infrastructure inside Gaza and taken out their leadership, from Ismail Haniyeh to Yahya Sinwar. And so all of these proxies that the Iranian regime had are now weakened and in some cases destroyed as a result of the Israeli operations in the aftermath of the October 7th massacre. And so now looking at the situation in Iran, you have a country that no longer has an extensive nuclear program following American and Israeli strikes against that program. Much of the Iranian ballistic missile launchers have been taken out, and the regime now has still ballistic missiles that they could launch at Israel or U.S. bases, but they're certainly weaker than they were in October of 2023. And so when you just look at the dynamic here of how things changed, it's quite interesting, and certainly the Israelis are looking at that. I'm going to take a few more questions here before we log off. But again, if you're just tuning in, my name is Trey Yingst. I'm the chief foreign correspondent for Fox News. I'd encourage you to share this video and be sure to follow us across social media platforms so that you can stay up to date on the latest. Someone says, can you explain how this regime is a threat to the world? I can tell you how the Americans and the Israelis view the Iranian regime. The Israelis look at the Iranian regime and specifically their ballistic missile program and the comments that they make about the destruction of Israel. They also look at the proxies of the Iranian regime across the region that have posed a threat to Israel. As for the Americans, they understand that when Israel gets into a direct conflict, it can draw in the United States, given the close security cooperation that these two countries have. And also understanding that the Iranians have not been good actors in the region as it relates to President Trump's broader aspirations of peace in the Middle East. And so those are the things that the Americans and the Israelis are looking at as it relates to the Iranian regime, and part of the reason that you've seen the action taken over the past year and a half to 2 years. Someone asked, do we know if Hezbollah is operating in Iran? We have actually received reports that there are some Hezbollah operatives helping the Iranian regime on the ground to enforce this, what could be described as an equivalent to martial law, the crackdown on these protests and these demonstrators in the streets of Iran. There are other proxy groups that are also participating, according to sources that we spoke with, especially in the western part in the city of Kermanshah, in this larger region that is a predominantly Kurdish area that has been greatly affected by the crackdown on demonstrators. So again, we will continue to cover the latest out of the Middle East as it relates to this story in Iran and a possible U.S. action against Iran and any sort of responses that could take place. My name is Trey Yingst. I'm the chief foreign correspondent for Fox News. Be sure to share this video with your audience, and thanks again for tuning in.